Welcome to the Impact of Educational Leadership Talk Show podcast, hosted by ID3 and Professor Jeff Willie. This show is designed to provide an exclusive forum on educational achievement gaps related to learner success while discovering relationships and family issues in diverse settings.
The scroll begins this way. Today I begin a new life. Today I shed my old skin, which had too long suffered the bruises of failure and the wounds of mediocrity. Today I am born anew, and my birthplace is a vineyard where there is fruit for all. Today I will pluck grapes of wisdom from the tallest and fullest vines in the vineyard, for these were planted by the wisest of my profession who have come before me, generation upon generation. Today I will savor the taste of grapes from these vines, and verily I will swallow the seed of success buried in each and every new life which sprout within me. The career I have chosen is laden with opportunity, yet it is fraught with heartbreak and despair, and the bodies of those who have failed, where they piled one atop of another, whose cast is into shadows down upon all the pyramids of the earth. Yet I will not fail, yet I will not fail, yet I shall not fail as the others, for in my hands I now hold the charts which will guide me through perilous waters to shores which only yesterday seemed but a dream. Welcome back to another night of the Impact of Educational Leadership. This is episode 20, hosted by ID3 and Professor Jeff Willie. Tonight's panelists are Dr. Rita Walter and Buddy Thornton. Guys, please say hello to the people.
Hello, everyone.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
All right. Tonight's topic is how to build unity among white, black, and brown educators in 2020. This is part one. Many would claim that our country is divided as it relates to racism and inequality. Over the past several years, we have become more acutely aware of the pervasive nature racism has caused and is causing in our country. America needs a unified spirit mixed with joy to see unification of our species in supporting and respecting each other and helping each other so we stand as the United States of America. We all have a common enemy whose power diminishes us to the very fiber of our internal being. Anger, miscommunication, lack of discipline, moral judgment, and respect of others is the enemy in this country. It's important to remember the severity of equal opportunity and achievement in many of the schools serving our most vulnerable asset, our students. Tonight, we will discuss how can we build unity among white, black, and brown educators in 2020. Tonight's first panelist is Buddy Thornton. Mr. Thornton is from the great state of Texas. He has since moved from the West Coast to Phoenix, Arizona, where he is currently running several businesses, and he is finishing up his doctoral studies. Mr. Thornton, sir, how are you doing? Please say hello to the people again.
I am doing great this evening, and it's my honor to be here.
Welcome to the Impact of Educational Leadership Talk Show podcast, hosted by ID3 and Professor Jeff Willie.
Awesome. So the first question for you, sir, is what can the community do to unify our learning centers with staff that better understand our responsibility to serve diverse demographics while providing equity for our students?
Well, the primary thing that most people overlook is that life is fundamentally unfair. Regardless of how we want to color our society as striving for equality and fair equity in how we approach people, students, social issues, life is fundamentally unfair, mainly because everyone has a different starting point. Everyone has a different worldview. So when you combine a starting point and a worldview that have a huge amount of disparity, and then combine that with a very diverse population, what you have is people who are fundamentally unfocused. They don't have one clear lens as to whether their worldview and the way they view life is going to be either acceptable or even understandable by people who are not similar to them. So the most important thing that we can do as a community is strive to develop that similar lens and start putting aside the implicit biases that we've talked about in previous podcasts, set aside the unconscious biases and the biases that are developed as we are reared from infancy into the adapt people. We have to decide, and it is a decision, it's a choice, we have to decide that we want to change the fact that life is fundamentally unfair and create an environment where fair becomes the same word for all people. And one of the ways we do that is emphasize that parents as well as teachers are responsible for teaching our youth. And it is important that teachers feel the support of the parents and that parents feel the competency and the desire to educate the children coming from the teachers. And that's one of the crossroads that a lot of school districts fail to comprehend, is that you need to build that base before a lot of effective learning is going to take place.
You know, I love the way you answer that question about the unfair advantage from different starting points. And that reminded me of a book that I'm currently reading called A Nation of Immigrants. And it's talking about Americanization movements of the early 20th century. And I believe it referred to people like Barbara Jordan, who called this term and deemed this term as the 21st century Americanization movement. And it talks about some of the different restrictions that certain immigrants have witnessed as it pertains to opportunities, as it pertains to advantages with academia and finance. And this has been closely tied to what some people have deemed as racism because of different species being more supported and more respected than others. And that kind of goes against, the whole theme of the United States of America. Dr. Walter is our next panelist, and I want to ask her a question. Dr. Walter she is also she's from the East Coast, but she's also resided on the West Coast, and she's done studies there. She's done research all over America. She's currently speaking in and out of America, going back and forth to Africa to do different retreats and speaking engagements. Dr. Rita Walter, my question to you is, first, please say hello to the people.
Hello, everyone, again. How are you? I missed being on. I haven't been on in a while.
That's quite all right.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And Professor Willie, you can chime in if you would like, but Dr. Rita Walter, how can educational leadership and history help shed light on resources that will enable effective settings, and practices.
Welcome to the Impact of Educational Leadership Talk Show podcast, hosted by ID3 and Professor Jeff Willey. This show is designed to provide an exclusive forum on educational achievement gaps related to learner success while discovering relationships and family issues in diverse settings.
Okay, let me think about that for one quick second, because I think you said effective settings, so I'm thinking that you mean the environment. That would include the home, the school, any kind of conducive learning situation. But that's really your forte, isn't it? Okay, but anyway, our practices, I'm thinking that in this situation, I believe should be the pro-social behaviors, basically to practice what we preach, right? I just want to make sure that I'm on the right track here. Am I?
Very much so.
Yes.
Very much so. Yes, we're talking about dispositions, pro-social behavior.
Yeah. Yeah. But I'm not going to get technical this evening, because if there's some younger people out there who are listening, I want them to be able to understand everything that I'm saying. So first of all, what I believe is that leaders must lead. I would say that over the past couple of years, our country has been torn apart by our so-called leader, and this individual has set us back 300 years, caused turmoil across the land. So without getting so politically involved, let me say this, that educational leadership plays a crucial part in the development of our youth. And we must instill the importance of education in our youth today, for they are our future. And let me give you a little bit of my own history. As you already know, I grew up in New York City. And in my neighborhood, we were all poor, but we didn't even know we were poor, So we didn't know that education was the way out. Some of us knew we wanted to get out, but we didn't know how. Some of us knew we'd get out, and some of us knew they wouldn't get out at all. So during that time, many of us found a way out through participation in club sports, such as basketball, baseball, track and field, whatever there was out there for us to do, we did. Go to the library, after school, we do whatever we could. We got a crucial part of our educational leadership from others, like coaches, like teachers. But in order to get out, the rules still applied. And we had to have good grades, even to qualify to get into college. And that was really hard for some of us, because none of us had any money, basically, back in those times. And as I sit back and think about it, the corruption that's going on today with all these college entrance scams that involve these highly paid coaches, programs in school, back in the day, that didn't even occur, because our parents, we didn't have the money to slide to so-called coach, or the ability to donate amounts of money for their child to get into the school. You know what? I'm sorry, I'm getting off track. So getting back to the subject of education, however, the fact is that educational leaders must be involved. The educational leaders today are not only there to teach, but also to lead. Education is not only books, but it's also life. Here's the key. Not only must the leader teach, but he must also show. And by this, I mean, how will a child learn if he or she does not have an example by which to follow? How are they supposed to learn? And as educational leaders, we must show our youth that we must show them, we must show them, and we do so by guiding them, by setting examples, by answering their questions, by mentoring them, or by getting involved. So that's where effective settings and practices come in. Like I said, I'm not going to get technical, but effective settings such as making sure that their pro-social behaviors are instilled while they're young, making sure that their self-esteem is blossoming, that you tell them they're smart, they'll believe they're smart. You tell them they're bad, they'll believe they're bad. You tell them, good things about themselves, and they can continue to grow. Okay? And as far as effective practices are concerned, my motto is each one, teach one. Be a mentor for somebody. Show somebody what to do. And leaders come in all shapes, colors, sizes. Basically, because we're all educational leaders, teaching is not only done in the home, but everywhere. So leaders must make available safe environments. They've got to get involved in the community. And we each need to do our parts. And that's where those effective practices come into play. Listen, I'm not going to go and get any more technical.
No. That is right in line with the theme. That's right in line with the theme, because I'm about to set Professor Willie up with this next one, but that's right in line with the theme, because I talked about anger, I talked about miscommunication, I talked about lack of discipline, moral judgment, and respect of others, and that is right in line with the quality of the environment that we need from leaders that are influential, that influence variations of effects such as health, such as education, such as the intensity of violence or gang violence, bullying, which is this new thing. We've always had bullying. Come on. They've had bullying.
Right, that's been around for ages.
Ages, antiquity. I mean, but now they're calling it this new thing, stop bullying or whatever. But, good leadership, strong leadership, gives out mentorship, gives out tutoring, it gives out programs, it gives out the needs that address a combination of environmental, of social, of societal needs, of societal and social factors.
And that's where those pro-social behaviors come into play. Yeah, you're right.
Professor Willie.
Yes, sir. Can I, before you ask the question for me, can I just kind of back up a little bit and try to pull what Buddy and Rita talked about, pull together. Buddy mentioned the starting point, and Rita just mentioned her starting point being in the neighborhood in New York, and that shaped the worldview. And my question to Buddy before I get back to Dr. Walter is, Mr. Buddy, how do we worldview? How do we shift that worldview? We are definitely birthed into an environment, and that definitely manifests and shapes our worldview. And how do we shift that worldview as we get older, or do something significantly happen, or there's emotional impact that changes that worldview? Give me some tools to help me shape my worldview. How do I change that from Dr. Rita's worldview has shifted significantly.
Well, one of the most important things that you have to shift a worldview is you have to understand that no matter how your worldview is constructed, everyone has a similar worldview. Sure, there may be a few differences in one perspective, especially if you're in the minority population. Your worldview is going to be one that you have limited opportunity, and you need to understand what your best path forward is. But there has to be a shift in the worldview that, regardless of where your starting point is, there are people who are committing themselves and their lives and their missions to make your path forward a reality. And that's a projection that teachers and mentors and parents don't unite on at this point in time. Some of it is because of the political climate that we're in, but a lot of it is because there's a lot of distrust that's been hanging on for decades that needs to be chiseled away. And the only way to do that is for people who are not from the same group, a cultural group, must get together and stand together shoulder to shoulder and say, look at us, we are a very diverse group, and yet we stand united. And the path forward is to stand united. It needs to be a message that's repeated over and over and over until people buy into the message, and especially the leadership accepts the fact that they're not going to be able to divide us any longer. You cannot divide people who are united.
Professor Willie, let me say something. That was an excellent question you asked, Buddy. And Buddy,
Yes,
if you
sir.
mind, can I kind of piggyback on that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Go ahead.
When you were talking, the first things I felt and what I heard and what came to me was you got to pair the right people together. That means you got to recruit the right way. So recruitment is a tool for that toolkit, Professor Willie. And screening, then you have to screen the personnel or the people before you even put them together or match them up together with each other. So that means you have to do some type of orientation. And after the orientation, then you have to do more training, and then you have to monitor the training, because, again, how are we going to build unity among the different diverse races of educators? It's going to have to be through recruiting the right people, which means you got to screen them, which means you got to do orientation, you got to do training, you got to do remedial training. Then you can match these people up together based off of what you do and that your expertise is in, Professor Williams, in this behavior management. Mm-hmm. And then start putting together activities. And I'm just feeding off of you guys. And then start putting together activities where you can kind of test and see how their social reaction is for one another. Do they act consistent? You know, are they consistent? Are they stable? Do they have good work together? Good work ethics together? Do you see a never give up attitude? Do you see them planning strategically? Are they transparent? Are they fair? Do they empower one another? What I like to say that you have taught me, Professor Willie, do they add value to one another?
Welcome to the Impact of Educational Leadership Talk Show podcast, hosted by ID3 and Professor Jeff Willie.
And so this is an ongoing support and supervision, and it's a peer-on-peer mentoring. It's mentoring, but it's also recognition. It's recognition, and it develops a structure. So that question that you asked, I was going to say, Dr. Buddy, was right on target. But please continue, Professor.
Can I add one small thing here? I developed a model during my research on the cross-cultural competency domain, and that model is it's evolved from an older model that is used in HR a lot. But the model I developed is called AXRA. A, you have to attract the right people. B, you have to make sure that their competency and their cultural fitness aligns with being willing to evolve their worldview. You have to select the right people once you determine their mindset and their willingness to evolve. Then you have to retrain, reorient, reestablish the fact that everyone has equity, everyone has equality. And then finally, unfortunately, those who fall out or are not able to meet the model, you have to be willing to attrition them out of the group, because they're going to be poisoning the well, they're going to be holding you back. Fortunately, if you can get the first 4 right, you normally don't get to the 5th one. But it's a model that has proven over and over again that as long as you attract the right people and you make sure their competency and cultural fitness is there, then you can select them and you can reorient them and make them a model part of the group that brings the entire group forward.
Yes, very powerful, very impactful, very informative. I love that. I love that.
Mm-hmm. Very much so.
Professor, you had a question for Dr. Walker.
Presentation on it, actually.
My perspective is, my question to Dr. Walter is, obviously coming from New York, very poor environment. I came from rural East Texas. And my question is, what was the catalyst, what was the paradigm shift, and what was the primary shift that started shaping your worldview from where you come from to where you are now?
You know what, Professor Woolley, I think in my case, mine was innate, because I always felt like a fish out of water. You know, I always knew that I wanted to leave the Bronx the South Bronx. I always knew that. Not that it was so bad. I mean, I grew up, and like I said, we were all the same, so it wasn't a big deal. Nobody knew any different. But something inside I had to strive for more. And so when some of my friends were out, they were out just hanging out or doing whatever, I was in the library, or when my friends, some of them were out just hanging, doing whatever, I had already started running track. And so I was always venturing somewhere. Every weekend I was gone. And, we were going to different track meets and, getting involved in different events. And so basically I was able to see other parts of the country. And so that enabled me to grow and say, well, you know what, there is a way out. And not only that, I had friends who played basketball. They were always traveling. So basically by getting out of the environment, I was able to see the world. And I knew that's what I would want. If I ever had children myself, that's what I would want for them. So that's what the paradigm was for me, to just be able to see how other people lived. And that's what did it for me. How about yourself?
Very good. Absolutely. My growing up in rural East Texas, it would take me a long time to share my story, but you would be able to read the book, and later on when you read The Value of X, coming out of rural East Texas and getting out of that area, because when I venture back into rural East Texas and the woods that I grew up in, that view still exists. That very, very backwards thinking view, it still exists today. And by me leaving the area in 1976 and been across this globe several times, and certainly being educated and being around educators and being around academia and folks with a growth mindset, with an open mindset, and having that significant dialogue with folks with different perspectives and different views, I learned to appreciate those different views, and that starts shaping my world view. You have to have an open mind for that and be willingness.
You certainly do.
Yes. And so that was the perspective for me. Yes.
Yeah, and like I said, luckily for me, I had a track coach who would always say, well, we're going here, we're going there, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And so basically he opened up my mind, and that was it. I was done. And so I wanted to make sure that, that I started something. This was something new for my family, It was the same thing.
Isaiah, can I share a quick story in regards to what Buddy has talked about and what Dr. Reeder has talked about, the starting point, that worldview? And this is my first teaching assignment as an educator, teaching high school in South Houston, basically in North Galveston County. And my second year teaching at this school, I went to the principal. I was an Air Force ROTC instructor, and I went to the principal and I asked the principal, I would love to take 50 African-American males off this campus and do an off-site, and talking about building the tassel is worth the hassle, the focus on getting a high school diploma, and that tassel is going to be worth the hassle. So I got a chance to get with the principal and the superintendent of the school district, and we chartered the Fantasia, which is a $5 million yacht in South Shore Harbor Club in South Houston. And we got the students, about 50 students, called them to the library, had them dress up, put a jacket on, put a tie on, and whatever they could. And we took them off site, and we intentionally drove those young men through some of the wealthiest neighborhoods in South Houston. It was intentional, because you could see the look on their face, and the moment they saw those homes, which they have never seen before, and they live in that area, but they've never been out of their neighborhood. That was a major paradigm shift. Those young men's world's view starts changing significantly. And one of those students, fast forward, that was a ninth grader, and right now, because of that shift in the world view, and this is 2008, in 2013, my niece got killed in a very tragic accident, and her cousin came to the hospital to visit her, and she brought her boyfriend with her in Tyler, Texas. And that's one of those, her boyfriend was one of those students that was now in college in University of Texas Tyler, dating my niece, and realized that you were my ROTC instructor in the 9th grade, and thank you for taking me on that trip.
You see? Yes. You see exactly.
And
right.
Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I know you're reminiscing.
Yes, absolutely.
I think Dr. Rita would recognize this because she grew up on the East Coast. But one of my best friends from the military, he used to say, the losers were just chill on the stoop, while everybody else who really wanted to do something or get away would avoid the stoop. And anyone who's lived in the northeastern United States can recognize that the word stoop is simply the stairs that take you into your or out of your home.
Into the house, yes, okay.
And when you drive through certain neighborhoods in Boston or New York or in parts of New Jersey, you'll see kids all sitting on the stoop, and they'll be chilling and they'll be talking, but they're not going anywhere. And they are the ones. Right, they're the ones that need a worldview shift. They're the ones that need someone to walk over and say, I've got a better idea for you.
Exactly. And that's very, very important because even in New York, there are some people who live right downtown Manhattan and have never even been to the Statue of Liberty or to the Museum of Natural History or to the Metropolitan Museum of Art or any of those places. And if you're not exposed, that's the key. If you're not exposed, then how do you know? Okay, so basically exactly what Professor Woolley said and what that's exactly what it's all about. If you can expose children and show them, that's what I said, each one teach one. So if you can show one child that there is a better way or a better life for you, then you may have made an impression on them.
I agree with you both, and Dr. Walter, I'm gonna bring you in here real quick, and I'm glad both of you guys said what you said, because that is what disposition is. Disposition is how people understand, how people see things, how people develop into a certain mindset, a certain perspective. If a kid, just the other night saw a cop, beat his dad, at the traffic light, okay? And then he's the same color as the teacher. And then he's going into his teacher's room with that stigma, with this mindset about this teacher. Can I trust this teacher? I just saw someone of your same race kind of look like you, just, did a wrong, did a crime, abused my loved one. And so now this pattern of behavior is exhibited frequently in certain demographics by certain people. And so now, as an educator, coming into a demographic where this is at its apex, okay, it is the responsibility of administration, is the responsibility of that teacher to understand the demographic before he or she goes into this classroom and tries to teach, tries to equip these kids to learn, to develop. Because how can you be successful when you really don't know your situation? How can you be successful when you really don't know your environment? How can a child develop, especially in early childhood, develop effectively without their educator knowing that neighborhood? Who wants to tackle that one?
Well, first of all, go ahead, Professor Willis.
No, go ahead, buddy. Go ahead. I want to be able to share something at the end, but yes, go ahead, buddy, because I'll follow with you.
I think what's missing in most equations is that we tend to lump and we tend to categorize. Humans have been doing that for 1 million years throughout their evolution. What we have to do is we have to take it upon ourselves, no matter what our ethnicity, what our background is, we have to take it upon ourselves to model that it does not matter where you are, who you are, how you started, but your behavior right now today can be acceptable. And it's very difficult when a child looks at you with very, very suspicious eyes and they're thinking in their mind, you're one of those people, when what you need to do is you need to model that there's no such thing as those people. There's one person who did a bad thing. There's one person who did something that was unacceptable, but you don't belong to a group. You're unique. You are an individual, and you can overcome that, but you have to model 100% of the time, you have to model the correct behavior, and you have to stress that that's exactly what you're there to do. You're going to always say, I am not someone else, I am me, I am Dr. Buddy, or I am Mr. Drone, or I am Dr. Rita, and then as long as you live the model that you speak and you live the model that you show and you're consistent, these children will automatically lump you in their in-group. They will bring you into their quality world and they will say, well, you know what, I might not be able to trust that guy over there, but I can trust Mr. Drone, or I can trust Dr. Rita. I can trust someone who has never shown me that they're going to be on the other side of the equation. That's the important thing, consistent modeling of proper behavior.
Wow. Could I follow up with that? I'm looking at the time also, Isaiah, but I wanted to just follow up with that, kind of bridge everything together. One thing about Ben, I'm hearing tonight is that leadership does matter. It is significantly important. Leadership matters. And as a leader, you must be intentional about bridge building, bringing people together, striving for more, and bringing people together. And I want to read one of Dr. Martin Luther King's quotes. And I think it's very prevalent to what we're talking about tonight. And it's about 3 sentences long. And it goes like this. I refuse to accept the view that mankind is so tragically bound by the starless midnight of racism and war that the bright daybreak of peace and brotherhood can never become a reality. I believe that unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final word.
Wow.
Amen, brother. Amen.
Yes, indeed.
With a quote like that, you really have to take a moment of silence because it takes your breath away. It takes your breath away. And I'm glad you brought up Martin Luther King because I think that's a great example to kind of close us out with, Professor Willie. How far or close is the United States to fulfilling Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream?
Right now, I'd have to say very far.
Okay.
Right now, I would have to
Dr.
say...
Martin Luther King dream, yes.
No, but based on the rhetoric that comes out of the current administration and the people who are completely focused on instant gratification and social mollification, they are grabbing at straws in the instant, and they're forgetting that we're all on this planet together and we all need to pull in the same direction together. And until someone in the leadership of the country, as well as the education field, stands up and says, divisiveness is wrong, believing other people's are less than is wrong, we are going to continue to struggle to meet Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream. And I, for one, do not accept that. I believe that we have the ability to overcome that, but we can only do it through a process that belongs to our American way, and we have to believe that everyone is our brother and sister, and we cannot accept division.
Amen, buddy. Well stated. Absolutely. We cannot accept divisiveness, and it requires intentional leadership with a mind to bring people together. And right now we have a mind that's dividing people, and that is leading us down a path of destruction until we can get. And then Dr. King said, this is the fate And with this faith, we were able to hew out the mountain of despair, a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. We got to have that faith. Keep the faith. I know we are right now struggling with that word faith because of our current discourse right now. But we need to be able to work together, pray together, live together, and struggle together because we have more similarities than we have differences.
Exactly. You know, and what I wanted to add was, you know, in our community, children need our guidance. You know, there are rules that they have to follow, and we as adult leaders have to set boundaries for them. You know, with those boundaries intact, they can learn from us. You know, children need love. So if we can show them that we care, mentor them, show them the way, set a good example in yourself. And notice I didn't say, you notice that I didn't say as yourself, but by seeing that you are who you are and you can be who you are as a mentor or leader, that picture can really move somebody's soul. So I just wanted to add that while we were talking about that.
Amen. Great. Thank you for that point.
You're welcome.
Well, we are out of time. I really want to thank each and every one of you for joining this powerful discussion on how to build unity among white, black, and brown educators in 2020. What are the takeaways tonight? Who want to go first? One takeaway, please, each.
I would let Dr. Rita close out, but I would say unconditional love is going to be key. We cannot lose faith in unconditional love. We all are God's children, and we all have purpose, and God loves us all, and we need to manifest God's love in ourselves for God's people.
Exactly, I agree. That's my last comment. I agree.
Yeah, I believe that we're all in the same canoe. We're all trying to paddle upstream right now, and we need to turn around and let God take us downstream together, and we need to be united in doing it.
All right. Well, tonight was another impactful night of the Impact of Educational Leadership. This was episode 20, hosted by ID3 and Professor Jeff Willie. Tonight's panelists were Dr. Rita Walter and Buddy Williams. Good night.
Welcome to the Impact of Educational Leadership Talk Show podcast, hosted by ID3 and Professor Jeff Willie. This show is designed to provide an exclusive forum on educational achievement gaps related to learner success while discovering relationships and family issues in diverse settings.